Hey guys, it's Spoot with Fort Misery Gaming, coming back to give you some, I guess we've decided to do a small beginner's guide with several tips to kind of help you get your bearings, because SinoAlice, while a very simple game, can be very difficult to sort of find your true north, so to speak. So let's talk a little bit about it. So the things that you want to know are, I've polled a bunch of people in our Discord, in Zenrado's Discord, in the unofficial Discord run by Zant, and a lot of questions sort of come up about simple things and things that you may not know. So here's just sort of a smattering of them, and as it goes on, if I get too many, we'll just make another video for some more if you guys find it useful enough. So the big thing starting out is, the biggest question, period, is what do I roll for, what do I get? Whatever you want. You want to pick a job because you're not going to main more than one or two jobs, maybe. And even then, they have to have pretty similar stats for it to even be close. So pick a job, be it one of the 4 DPSs or one of the 4 supports. We recommend, as a whole, not to play mage in PvP, just because you don't receive any of the bonuses that regular PvP classes do. That's not saying they're not useful. They are very good in PvE, because a lot of their orbs or artifacts do AoE damage, so it's pretty good. And you get a couple of orbs that do singular damage, which is very high. So pick a job that you want to play. For most clans, I'm going to go ahead and tell you, if you are trying to get into PvP, unless you are raking out DPS numbers and you have a really high PowerPoint level, don't even bother playing DPS. You only need 5 of them in a guild. You can only put 5 of them on the front. You need 10 support. So your numbers are always going to be skewed towards support. And I know some of you may not like that, and that's fine. I get it. Sometimes you just want to hit things and see big numbers. I absolutely understand it. But the support base in this game is a lot higher. So, like, if I go up to Zen Gang, which is the guild we started with Zenrado, we're 4-0 right now, which is pretty sweet. You'll notice that we have a handful of supports. We've got a handful of DPS. I think at the low end, I think we have 7 DPS and 8 support, and 2 of the DPS are, these 2 are swapping over to something once they get their accounts built up a little bit. So that's kind of something to consider. Like, you'll notice, like, Benzi's up here with 60k, totally free to play, by the way, so don't think you can't do anything. It's wild. You've got Lazuli up here with 50,000, and as a support, although he did luck out and get, like, 3 SR instruments, which is a huge difference. You've got Fort, you've got the other half of the channel at 50k, and then you've got me down here at 36k, because my pulls were dookie. But here we are, we have to deal with it. I'm still raking in rank numbers. So keep that in mind for guilds. Like, you want to play something you have fun at, but you may not be able to play DPS in a guild. There are significant amounts of them. The second thing I want to go over is Purification. A lot of you don't know what this does. So this is how you refill your stamina and you gain account XP. So you want to click and drag to the different color of each of these little demons. So you do blue first and then red. You are on a timer. It's pretty fast. You're not going to be able to get all of them all the time. And even then, I'm messing up pretty significantly because I'm trying to explain it at the same time. After you get 5 orbs, you will launch an ult, but you have to click on your character to do so. Don't waste it on small rooms unless you think you can bang out another ult. Like, that's an okay room to hit, just because you're going to hit all of them and save yourself some time. And it gives you a good opportunity at 12 seconds in to build your ult back up. I messed up the timing on that one real bad. This is going to be a very mediocre... meaty ogre. Because there is travel time between your hits, so you want to be really, really careful about that. So you get AP, on average you're going to get 100. On XP you get anywhere from about 80 to 120. It's always pretty good payoff, so don't disregard that. You can put Purification tickets in to reset it. Normally, if you are not on Royal rank, it is an 8-hour reduction. If you are on Royal rank, which is this little crown thing here, it drops it down to a 4-hour. So something to keep in mind. Next, specifically, Royal rank. What does it do? So if you go into your shop, and you go into Royal User Service, you have 2 options. You can buy a week for $4, or a month for $12. Now, the thing you want to know is you get a royal medal for every week you do this on the singular week one. If you buy the 4-week one, you get 4 royal medals off the rip. Those are exchangeable for rather powerful equipment, nightmares, you name it. It's pretty good. Plus, you get $4 off on the monthly if you buy it, instead of buying it weekly to weekly, so it's not too bad. So what do you get with royal rank, aside from the medals, which are pretty good? On purchase, you get 49 Twilight Crystals, you get 1 royal medal. The difference between that is, if you buy the monthly, you get 4 medals up front. And then you get 3 blessing items 2 times each. These are the XP drop, gold drop, and item drop. You get 7-day on-purchase gifts. You reduce Purification from 8 to 4 hours. You can do your daily friend medals up to 5. That is a huge deal. You get 5 exclusive chat stickers. You get 3 royal skip tickets and 1 Purification daily ticket just from logging in. So it's a pretty good service, and if you feel like even free to play, you can spare $12 a month, I would do it. It's pretty good. It's definitely something to keep up with. Things to know about your gear menus, and I will go over this specifically in a larger video about weapons and all that, but here's just some small stuff. When you go into edit, you can change your class, you can do your weapon, your armor, your nightmare. That's all cool. Here, you can go to sub-gear. This equips all the weapons you don't normally have equipped. For example, my minstrel is not using SR swords or lances. Just doesn't happen. When you get more armor, you get to put them down here, and all of your extra nightmares go here. You get a reduced percentage on your sub-gear than you do on your main gear. So, like, obviously everything in here is pretty good. You'll get, anywhere from 100 to 60, 160%, depending on if it's a specialized weapon or not. But down here, you're only going to get anywhere from, I think it's 10 to 15%. So these, while worth leveling up just to have the stats, are of less value than the things you can actually equip. So focus on what's in your main box first. I've got all these SR or artifacts up here that are killing me. Second thing about gear that you need to know. Test it out. Figure it out. The recommended tab isn't always going to give you the best layout, but it's probably going to get close. Upgrade gear is self-explanatory: weapon, armor, nightmare. They all use 3 different resources. Do it as you please. It's pretty self-explanatory. Limit break. If you have 2 pieces of the same gear, like I have 2 of Cinderella's swords, I can update it to gain 5 levels. So it goes from a 60 to a 65, and its skills go up by 1 level. Don't do this until you evolve the gear entirely. When you evolve a gear, it resets to 1. So if getting to level 60 takes X experienced resources, getting it to level 80 will require X plus Y, which is just strictly kind of a waste of your resources. Keep that in mind. Everybody gets really excited to be like, oh yeah, my S equipment's got like 5 ranks on it. But if you ever plan on, evolving it to an SR, you're going to be spending a lot more sword experience resources on it than if you weren't. This is a thing that a lot of people didn't know because they didn't know how many levels carried over once you limit broke things. So that's kind of a common thing, but it's very simple. And it's very easy to mess up. I messed up on my first one, so like it happens. You're going to do it at least once. Hopefully somebody tells you and you're like, oh, okay, maybe that's not a great idea. That's fine, whatever. Evolution gear is the same thing. You collect your scales, your eyes, your dragons, your claws, and you make a piece of gear once it's at max level. So like this one would be 50. And it turns 1 rank up. So all equipment only goes up 1 rank. So C's turn into B's, B's turn into A's, A's turn into S's, S's turn into SRs, SRs turn into legendaries, L's. You pretty much want to ignore anything below an S. Like, if you are in a pinch, A equipment will do, but it's not your best investment. Just sort of keep that in mind. Armor requires about the same thing as far as upgrading equipment. Upgrading nightmares is where you're going to run into the big problem. So the plant mucus, the fresh serpent blood, and the fresh dragon blood. There are different variables on these, and they do different things. So kind of keep that in mind. You've got upgrade class. This is where you pick your classes, you drop a whole bunch of levels into them, and you sort of see how that goes. So for the most part, I've got my minstrel up at 10. You can go to 12 right now with Arcana cards, which are how you limit break the class. I think, let me see if I have a class that I can limit break. I don't think I have any Arcana cards saved up, so we'll have to talk about that once I get some. So I haven't completed all of the stories, so I've got a whole bunch of freebies. I've got a couple of gacha units. I've got a couple of the event units, like the Cinderella Sorcerer that's out right now. It's not the worst thing. Limit breaking class is how you do your Arcana. So you have to get it to level 10, and then it requires 1 Arcana for the next level, and I believe it's 1 for the second level, but I would have to double check because I can't see it. View sell, this is something you may or may not know. Don't sell your weapons. You're better off feeding those into higher grade weapons for like your low stuff at worst. Same thing with armor. Nightmares, same thing. You're generally better off fusing these things than feeding them into something else. Your miscellaneous is where it gets really cool. So this is where all of your rate up and experience up and skill orbs and everything goes. But you also get these little bags of money that you may not know exist. You can go in and sell them and make some cash. It's like 68 grand. I'm told there is an option to auto sell. I believe that is in the regular options, but I will show that to you in a bit. Grimoires. This will be one of the last ones we cover before we move on to another video. So Grimoires, this is your pull menu. This is where everything happens. This tells you what it is, your appearance rate, your details. This is pretty much the same thing that you're going to see every time. These are at max unlock, so these are at legendary, so 1 evolution and max level. So they'll give you a kind of an idea of what to look for, like what has the better stats. And then you can check the appearance rates on things. So you'll see that your SR, your chase characters are anywhere from 0.66% to 0.034, which is kind of crazy. A lot of stuff in there. You've got your nightmares at 0.034. You've got your S weapons, 2 of them. One's at just a flat 3%, so that's pretty cool. That's just your general rates. And then you've got your menu. This is where a lot of stuff is. So you've got your shop. This will tell you where your Twilight Crystals are. This includes any bundles, so you can get a weapon, you can get a Nightmare, you can get a Red Riding Hood Cleric, you can get a bunch of extra gems. Royal Use of Service, we already went over, pretty self-explanatory. Items. This is the thing that everybody is kind of like either shitting the whole bed on or they don't know what it does. So if you are a DPS unit, you might want to purchase one of the Vanguards. And if you are a rear guard, you might want to purchase one of the rear guards, mostly because you get 1 SR piece of gear and the rest of it's S. So it's usable, and yeah, if you purchase all of them, you can limit break them, but this gear's gonna get outclassed very, very quickly, even by same class gear. Like, all of these S's will be outdated pretty quickly. So, like, if you need a piece of gear and you need to be able to SR it and get it pretty high, it's not awful, but 1's fine. I wouldn't go too much deeper down that rabbit hole. You've got your items. This is where all of your... No, we already did that. That's fine. You've got your expand inventory. This is where you can get more slots for more things. Your weapon inventory you are absolutely going to invest in the future. Nightmare inventory slots you may or may not. Expanded misc you might. Armor, probably not for a while because you don't get that much armor. So you've got your board, which is sort of a social media board that's kind of cool, but I don't know how many people are actually using it. You've got your medals. Charm medals you get by selling equipment or fusing it. For a nominal fee, you can get a pretty decent piece of equipment. For example, I get Warrior's Waltz on my Minstrel, which massively increases 1 ally's physical attack. That's usually either by 2 or 3 gauges, depending on how many levels you have. You can get the Pinocchio Paladin. You can get the Red Riding Hood Arcana Clerics. So if you're running Paladin, that's a free Pally class if you like Pinocchio. You've got a cheap orb here, which isn't bad if you need an SR gear, but I would wait until you can get something larger. You can get a Misery costume, which isn't terrible. It's pretty comparable to the free set you get, but not the worst thing. With 1,000 of these things, you can get an extra 300 gems, not too terrible. And then you start getting into resource stuff. You can upgrade your limits. You can get your books. These I will talk about in a second, because those are very, very important. You can get skill gems, sword experience, all of your upgrade and resource stuff. And then you can get bags of gold if, for whatever reason, you've emptied out the rest of it. Friend medals are the same thing. You can get a lot of equipment pretty quickly at 20. Some of this stuff is really, really good. Some of it's not so much. Like, this is usually better off in a pinch. The Idol's Harp is actually pretty good with me because it's a level 3 physical attack up, and I do not have many of those in my box. Some of this is pretty self-explanatory. You're going to get a lot of this stuff passively, so it's only if you really need a particular item. Medal of Desire are your gotcha coins. So as you can see, if I did not own Alice Cleric, I could buy the class. And once I own the class, I can get her Arcana cards to upgrade it. I can also, for 1500, just get the weapon. So this is sort of where your pity system comes into play. These medals last for a pretty long time. You've got a month on these, bare minimum, so it's not the worst thing. So you should pull 15 times within a month and a half, because what did this come out on the 1st, and it's 8/13 is the delay? Yeah, so it requires 1500, and you can pretty much grab something you want. Playing PvP and PvE, you're going to get anywhere from 6,000 to 10,000 gems a month if you stay on top of it and you do all the little events. It's a little bit of grinding, but it's not very difficult. This game doesn't require that much time. So just keep those in mind. Your chrono medals are from events, and your royal medals are from your royal service. These are where things get kind of crazy. You get SR gear for like 7 of these things. And check the gear, because you can get SR gear for 3 and 7, and like, for example, the Forest of Darkness is fine. It's greatly increases magic attack to 1 to 2 allies, so it's a 2 ally magic attack bump, but I could spend 3 orbs and get sealed water, and I can greatly increase 2 allies physical defense, which stops people from hurting them. So it's kind of gauge what you need. Here's the really cool thing. The Samsara Rebirth gem's funny. So all 3 summons are in this thing, and if you purchase the discounted first week royal and then the month royal, you can purchase any of these. Freeze Golem is going to be very good for the upcoming Nier event. Lindworm will be good afterwards, and Oogaloo is good if you only have fire equipment. Like, I wouldn't buy all of them, but these stats are pretty good. Like, that's 1200 physical attack on a Golem. Oogaloo's got 1000, but he's a little more average on the back end. You've got Lindworm, who's got a crap ton of magic attack. The elemental ones are pretty usable, mostly because of their abilities. So, like, Gale Blessings increase the effectiveness of wind skills. So when raids start happening, these things get very, very popular very quick because they can just run down one element. Rankings are pretty self-explanatory. These are just guild rankings and stuff like that. Yeah, it's pretty easy. Items. This is the thing you want to know. So this is where all of your consumables go. Things that you want to pay attention to, that kind of stuff. So your skip tickets, your medals, all this is fine. Here are the XP drops you can get. So you've got a 10-minute version and a 30-minute version. So you get gold, drops, or XP. Your purification tickets. Here you go. Books. Books will award you a certain amount of class mastery per book. So for example, I'm using 2. I get 10,000 mastery. So that is enough for me to pretty much run down... well, let's just do it. So we go to upgrade class. And I need some more magic. So generally you don't want to improve a class past about 8 unless you really, really need the HP at the end or whatever the last stat is. Always gauge it, because you're not always going to need every stat that's in a class. Eventually, yeah, maxing is fine, especially if you need to pivot into a different class, but it's not the best thing. Like for the Kaguya Sorcerer, I would stop at 7, because I don't really need the rest of it. It just doesn't do enough for me to justify taking it. So now I have the HP 50, the magic attack, and both of the defense ones. So pretty good. We got Cindy Sork today. I don't think I'll be able to max her, but I can put her at 5. That'll give me her class if I ever decide to play Sork. Magic defense, physical defense, and I want the magic attack and HP. So 7 is safe for a minstrel. But you always want to gauge what common stats you have. You're going to look at these things and be like, yo, that's 50 HP. That's not a big deal. It is and it isn't. So these things are permanent. So when you get them, it is on your account. So every character you play going forward, at bare minimum, will have these stats. Those add up a lot when you're talking 30, 40, 50, 100 characters. So don't disregard the little common stats. They do eventually become very, very powerful if you are making, any amount of up on your account. Stamps are fine. Codex is same thing as View. You can sort of read all of the stories that are attached to weapons. Information is just official stuff, terms of use, privacy policy, all that. It's self-explanatory. Museum lets you do stories and movies. That's pretty okay. Data transfers, where you can lock it to a social media account. You can make a password. You can change it. Help. Profiles, where you can change your name, your flag. You can sort of see your history, what your average magic attack is, who you're affiliated with, all that stuff. So pretty self-explanatory. You can leave a hello message. Options are pretty good. You can change the sounds and everything. You can change what push notifications you want, which is actually really cool. You can skip scenarios if you've seen them during, which is I need on this one. You can do Purity Confirmation, Coliseum. You can turn your energy settings either really, really low settings or high quality settings, which is pretty cool. You'll actually notice the menus move like significantly faster now, and things are a little crisper. Not by much, but enough to notice it. And that's your general go over. Those are your tips. Those are your things to look out for. I'm going to make a more specified thing for more advanced techniques and like things you might be more curious about later down the line. But I figured we'd get out some basics like this is what this does. These are these things. These are things to look for. So hopefully you guys are enjoying the content and you're staying with us. And you can join the Discord. If you see on the bottom left, there's a link. We had a bad link issue with the one, so I'm trying to update it in all of the about us information in the bottom of the video. So going forward, we should have the right ones updated. So thanks for following us. Give us a like and a comment and subscribe, and don't get miserable.